The last time I saw my Aunt May, she was sitting by the window in her favorite silk blouse, dabbing at her cheeks with powder. "I used to love my skin," she whispered. "Now, I just try to hide it." She's 74. Sharp mind, soft voice. But lately, she won't go out without makeup. Not because of wrinkles, she calls those her smile lines. No, it's the spots. Dark spreading patches that crept across her cheeks and forehead like a map she never asked for. What broke me wasn't the way she looked. It was the way she looked away, as if some part of her had disappeared with her youth. And here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud. For many aging women and men, these aren't just skin issues. They're quiet griefs, markers of time, symbols of less than. But they don't have to be. Because what if I told you those brown patches aren't permanent? What if the same skin you thought had betrayed you could become the reason you feel proud to look in the mirror again? That's what this story is about. Not miracle creams, not shame, but real answers born from 50 years of research. And a simple fruit that changed everything. Part 1. The mirror moment. I still remember the sound of my grandmother's spoon tapping the side of a teacup, measured slow, almost ritualistic. She'd make a cup of barley tea every morning, then sit at the edge of her faded green couch and slowly rub cream onto her arms, always in circles, always clockwise. For blood flow, she used to say. I didn't understand it then. I just thought it was cute. But now, decades later, I find myself doing the same thing. Except instead of barley tea, it's antioxidant serums. And instead of slow comfort, it's frantic curiosity. Why did my skin suddenly change in my 60s? Why did it go from glowing to graying? And here's the thing. No one prepares you for the texture of aging skin. People talk about wrinkles like they're the big villain. But what truly caught me off guard was the dryness. The sudden dullness. The fine flakes that no lotion seemed to quench. I'd wake up and feel like I'd been dusted in ash. It wasn't just about looking older. It felt like my skin was fading. That's what led me down the rabbit hole. I started researching skin barrier function, not from a beauty blog, but actual dermatology texts. What I discovered blew my mind. Did you know that after the age of 60, your skin's ability to produce ceramides, those waxy lipids that hold moisture, drops by nearly 50%? It's like building a house with no insulation. Everything escapes. Moisture, elasticity, even your sense of self-worth if you're not careful. And yet, the beauty industry barely talks about it. They push peptides and retinol without addressing the real villain, transepidermal water loss. That's what my dermatologist called it, with a straight face, while handing me a moisturizer that cost more than my monthly electricity bill. But the truth, moisture isn't just about cream. It's about what you feed your skin from the inside out. Here's where it gets weird. One day, while helping my neighbor prune her persimmon tree, she handed me a cup of a golden liquid. It was tangy, sweet, slightly nutty. Camellia seed broth, she said. My grandmother swore by it. I smiled politely, but later that night I Googled it. Turns out camellia oil has one of the highest oleic acid contents of any natural plant oil, higher than olive oil and oleic acid. It mimics the natural sebum in your skin, replenishing it from the inside, not as a topical, but as a food. That's when something clicked. Our ancestors didn't rely on skincare aisles. They relied on instinct and plants. And maybe, just maybe, they were onto something that modern marketing has buried under jars and jargon. So I made a change. I stopped chasing youth in a bottle and started chasing balance in my diet. I added pumpkin seeds, sesame oil, barley tea, and every morning I'd drink that golden broth, letting it warm my throat, my chest, my skin, if that makes sense. And something happened. The flaking slowed. The grayness lifted. Not overnight, but enough to notice. Enough to smile at my reflection instead of avoiding it. There's science behind this, of course. The gut-skin axis, they call it. But what stayed with me more was the feeling. That sensation of taking agency again. Of not being at war with my own face. We're not taught to age with curiosity. We're taught to resist it. But what if we didn't? What if we listened not to trends, but to our body's small whispers? What if every wrinkle wasn't a flaw, but a message? In the next room, I keep a notebook. I write down every food that makes me feel luminous. Not pretty, not young, just luminous. And that's where we're headed next, because it's not just about what you apply, it's about what you absorb. And the next nut I'm going to talk about, it looks healthy, it feels indulgent, but for many of us, it might be doing more harm than good. Part 2. Beyond skin deep, the real causes. George didn't look like someone in trouble. He was spry sharp, the kind of 72-year-old who made you feel bad about skipping your morning walk, the kind who still polished his shoes every Sunday and remembered everyone's birthdays down to the year. But when I saw him last fall at a family picnic, something felt off. His smile was there, but dimmer. He sat more than he stood, and when we passed around the tin of trail mix, I saw him reach in, again and again, for the cashews. Doctor says they're better than cookies. He chuckled. What he didn't know, what most people don't know, is that cashews are metabolic saboteurs hiding behind a health halo. See, unlike most nuts, cashews are unusually high in carbs, about 9 grams per ounce. Not fiber, not protein, straight up carbs. And when you're diabetic or even teetering on the edge, that's not a snack, it's a spike. 2 months after that picnic, George was back at the clinic. His blood sugar off the charts, his energy gone, his legs cramping in the middle of the night like coiled wire. The culprit wasn't cake or soda. It was the daily dose of heart-healthy trail mix his granddaughter had lovingly gifted him. We assume nuts are safe because they're natural. But here's the inconvenient truth. Cashews are outliers. They contain oxalates, those sneaky little compounds that bind to calcium and flush it out of your system. For someone dealing with bone loss, that's like drilling holes in a sinking ship. I had a client, 67 years old, plant-based, proud of it. Ate clean, walked daily. But he ended up in the ER with kidney stones the size of peppercorns. The cause? A handful of cashews every night before bed. He thought he was doing the right thing. He was actually building gravel in his kidneys. And that's just the start. Did you know cashews contain urushiol? Yep, the same compound found in poison ivy. Raw cashews are toxic. The ones we eat have to be heat-treated, roasted, steamed, and processed within an inch of their life just to be safe. But in that process, most of their nutrients vanish. What's left? A creamy, addicting shell of a food stripped of fiber, loaded with marketing. Worse still, most commercial cashews are glazed or oil roasted, drenched in sodium and hydrogenated fats that hammer your cardiovascular system like a slow drumbeat. I once measured the sodium content in a single glazed batch. It was higher than a bag of chips. And texture. Let's not pretend that doesn't matter. Cashews are smooth, soft, easy to chew, which sounds ideal until you realize that elderly people with dulled satiety signals overeat them easily. Their brains don't get the "I'm full" memo in time. Worse, they're among the most aspirated nuts in seniors. Quiet, easy to inhale, easy to choke on. I know this is a lot, and I'm not here to demonize a nut. I'm here to say our bodies change, and so should our choices. When you're 30, your pancreas can take a few hits. At 70, it's like walking a tightrope over glass. Cashews aren't evil, but they're a poor match for bodies in transition. So what do? We shift, slowly, thoughtfully. We swap cashews for walnuts loaded with omega-3s, or almonds rich in fiber and lower in carbs, or pistachios unroasted, unsalted. They support your brain, your bones, your blood sugar. They don't need a shiny label. They are the label. George made the switch. He still misses the creaminess sometimes, but now when I see him, he's standing taller, joking more. His legs don't cramp, his numbers solid, and most of all, he feels in control again. Because that's the truth. Most people don't tell you health isn't just about nutrition. It's about reclaiming agency. In the next section, we'll meet someone else. Her story begins with a smile and ends with a visit to the dentist. But buried inside it is a lesson worth chewing on. Part 3. Why expensive treatments fail. Macadamia cookies always felt like a luxury. Maybe it's the buttery bite. Maybe the name itself, macadamia, whispers something indulgent. My old neighbor, Mr. Choi, 77 years old, and as proper as a handwritten letter, swore by them. Brain food, he'd wink gently, tapping his temple. Every Wednesday, he'd sit on his veranda with a cup of tea and his favorite cookies like a ritual. What he didn't realize was that those little cookies weren't just dessert. They were quietly sabotaging his health. Macadamias are dense. 1 ounce packs over 200 calories. That might not sound alarming unless, like Mr. Choi, you barely hit 2,000 steps a day. When your metabolism slows, every extra bite matters more than it used to. The calories don't just disappear. They linger, settling into your joints, your belly, your bloodstream. And the fat. Yes, macadamias are high in good monounsaturated fats, but they also carry nearly 3 grams of saturated fat per ounce. That's the kind that builds plaque in arteries and whispers danger to a heart already working overtime. But the trouble doesn't stop at cholesterol. Macadamias are hard stone-like. Bite into one the wrong way, and you'll hear a crack that isn't from the nut. I once met a man who fractured his crown on a single roasted macadamia. The dentist bill, over $1,000. And for seniors with bridges implants or fragile enamel, one snack can become a dental emergency. Then there's the gallbladder. It's the quiet organ often forgotten until it isn't. Macadamias have over 22 grams of fat per ounce. For people with silent gallstones, that kind of fat load can trigger attacks, nausea, sharp pain pressure under the ribs. The kind of discomfort that gets blamed on indigestion or just getting old, but is really your body sounding an alarm. And here's the twist most people miss. Macadamia oils go rancid fast. They oxidize easily when exposed to air or light. That odd, waxy aftertaste, that's not your imagination. It's a sign that you're swallowing something that's already breaking down, accelerating inflammation inside your body. We often trust fancy foods, but macadamias are metabolic butter disguised as health food. Their glycemic load may be low, but their caloric density and fat imbalance make them a dangerous snack in disguise. Even science plays favorites. Most major studies praising nuts for heart health exclude macadamias. Why? Because their nutrient profile skews the results. Yet in marketing, they're lumped in with almonds and walnuts as if their creamy flavor equals similar benefits. There's also the emotional trap. As we age, our taste buds dull. Bold flavors like macadamias become comforting. But that leads to overeating. And overeating leads to weight gain. And weight gain starts a domino effect: sleep apnea, joint pain, insulin resistance. At one of my workshops, I passed around 2 bowls, dry roasted and oil roasted macadamias. The sodium difference was staggering 6 times higher in the oil roasted batch. Most participants couldn't tell the difference by taste alone. But within weeks, a few of them reported new blood pressure spikes that mysteriously resolved when they cut back on the nuts. So should seniors never touch macadamias again? Not quite. Macadamias, like dark chocolate, should be a treat, not a staple. Stored cold. Eaten slowly, treated with the respect reserved for something potent, not passive. Mr. Choi still enjoys his cookie on Wednesdays. But now, it's just one. And it's chased by a walk around the block, not another handful. Because here's the truth. Not all dangers scream. Some smile. Some melt on your tongue. And some sit quietly in your pantry, waiting for habit to take over. But in the next part, we'll meet a nut that's not just in your snack. It might be in your medication. And its effects go deeper than your blood. They touch your brain. Part 4. The Folk Remedy. Trap. My Aunt Una was always sharp. Crossword puzzles every morning. She'd win every word game at family gatherings. But last spring, something shifted. Her blood pressure spiked. Her sleep turned erratic. And her antidepressant, something she'd relied on for years, just stopped working. Doctors blamed stress aging, even seasonal mood swings. But none of it fit. Until one simple question changed everything. Have you changed anything in your diet? Turns out she had. She'd started making homemade pesto, fresh basil, garlic, olive oil, and pine nuts. She loved it. Ate it with pasta, spread it on toast, even dipped cucumbers into it as a snack. None of us ever thought twice until the doctors did. Because here's what no one tells you. Pine nuts can quietly interfere with over 60% of the medications commonly prescribed to seniors. Statins, antidepressants, blood thinners, ACE inhibitors. And not because pine nuts are evil, because they're biochemically active. They contain compounds that alter drug metabolism, especially in aging bodies where liver enzymes are already sluggish. This isn't hypothetical. The literature is there buried in pharmacology journals. But pine nuts aren't seen as medically significant, so they're rarely flagged. But they should be. And if that weren't strange enough, there's pine mouth, a real documented syndrome where pine nuts trigger a metallic, bitter taste that lasts for days, even weeks. Sounds minor, until you realize that for seniors who already struggle with low appetite or dulled taste, this can mean skipping meals, losing weight, and even spiraling into nutritional decline. I know a man who dropped over 4 kilograms in 2 months, all because of funny tasting food that made him stop eating. And let's talk oxidation. Pine nuts are high in delicate polyunsaturated fats. These oils degrade fast, especially when stored at room temperature or in plastic packaging. That subtle rancid smell, that faint sourness, it's not just unpleasant, it's pro-inflammatory. It can worsen arthritis, hasten cognitive fog, even raise insulin resistance. Your trendy pesto may be feeding your inflammation, but the danger isn't just internal, it's also mechanical. Pine nuts are small, soft, and slick sounds, harmless, right? Not quite. For seniors with dry mouth, caused by over 400 common medications or weak swallowing reflexes, these little seeds can become a choking hazard, not dramatically, not visibly, but quietly. I've seen it. That sudden cough during lunch, that's not just water going down the wrong way. And the gut pine nuts contain enzyme inhibitors, compounds that make it harder for your stomach to break down proteins. If you're 25, your gut compensates. But if you're 75 and already struggling with digestion, this slows protein absorption, which in turn affects muscle retention, immune strength, and even cognitive clarity. Then there's the most recent red flag. Early research suggests that certain compounds in pine nuts may accelerate age-related macular degeneration, AMD, the leading cause of vision loss in people over 65. While the science isn't conclusive yet, some eye doctors are quietly advising their older patients to limit pine nut intake just in case. So what's the takeaway? Food isn't just food, not at this age. For senior, every bite is either a building block or a breakdown. Pine nuts, with their refined image and gourmet appeal, hide behind elegance, but they deserve scrutiny. My Aunt Una, she stopped the pesto. Within weeks, her sleep normalized. Her blood pressure steadied. Her meds began to work again. Coincidence maybe, but when she told her story at our family dinner, 2 other relatives paused mid-bite. One put down a cracker covered in store-bought pesto. Because clarity doesn't always come from a doctor's office. Sometimes it starts in the kitchen. And next we return to a nut that's beloved, smooth, and often praised as healthy, but quietly spikes blood sugar, blocks calcium, and even contributes to kidney stones. It's sweet on the outside, but dangerously deceptive within. Part 5. The apple cider and tomato formula. Cashews. Just saying the word feels innocent, harmless even. They look like smiles, don't they? That soft, curved shape. Silky on the tongue. Subtle sweetness that lingers like a treat from childhood. And for many seniors, they've become the guilt-free alternative to chips or candy. But let me tell you about Masako. She's 72. Lives alone in Osaka, a former school teacher. Kind eyes, always polite. Takes her diabetes seriously, measures her blood sugar daily. Walks every morning along the Sumiyoshi River and keeps a detailed food diary. And yet something went wrong. Her energy started dipping. Her legs would cramp at night. Her numbers, once so steady, began to wobble. Her doctor changed medications, added magnesium, even suspected neuropathy. But it was her granddaughter, a med student, who noticed a pattern in the food log. Masako had switched from almonds to cashews, thought she was being healthy. "They go well with green tea," she said. She didn't realize cashews carry nearly 9 grams of carbs per ounce, most of it sugar. Not visible sugar, not sweet to taste, but hidden glucose that slips into the bloodstream like a thief. Cashews have one of the highest glycemic impacts among nuts. For aging bodies battling insulin resistance, it's not just a bad choice, it's sabotage. But the problem isn't just the sugar. Cashews are loaded with oxalates, those sneaky compounds that bind to calcium in your gut and prevent it from being absorbed. In your 30s, that might be annoying. In your 70s, that's dangerous. Every milligram of calcium matters now, especially for women like Masako, who already have brittle bones from silent osteoporosis. And there's more. Oxalates don't just block calcium, they build in your kidneys over time, quietly forming calcium oxalate crystals, gravel in your system, until one day you end up in the ER. Back pain, nausea, vomiting, a pain so sharp you'll never forget it. I've seen it. A 67-year-old man in Nagano who ate clean every day except for his daily cup of roasted cashews. He never saw it coming. But what truly unnerves me, cashews contain urushiol, the same toxin found in poison ivy. Yes, the nuts are processed, roasted, steamed, stripped to remove it. But some trace remains. That dry scratch in your throat after a handful, that's not dust, that's residue. And yet the marketing, heart healthy, plant protein, vegan cheese base, they slip into granola bars, trail mixes, snack packs. Many are oil roasted, heavily salted, even honey glazed. The sodium stresses your heart. The oils spike inflammation. And the sugar coating, it's dessert in disguise. Now think of this. Cashews are so soft, they're easy to overeat. Seniors, especially those with dulled taste buds or weaker satiety signals, can polish off a cup before realizing. Worse, cashews are one of the most commonly aspirated nuts in elderly populations. That's right, because they're soft, small, and quick to chew, they often slip into the airway, especially for those on medications that cause dry mouth. And if that weren't enough, cashews contain enzyme inhibitors that make protein harder to digest. For a 22-year-old, no big deal. But for a 72-year-old fighting muscle loss and immune decline, it's a disaster. This is what breaks my heart. Seniors eat cashews thinking they're doing the right thing, because the world told them so. But often, they're unknowingly undercutting their own strength bit by buttery bit. So let's ask honestly, are cashews evil? No. But they demand respect, moderation, awareness. For some, they may be fine once or twice a week in small amounts, raw and unsalted. But if you're diabetic, calcium deficient, prone to kidney stones, or dealing with inflammation, they're not your friend. You want real allies: walnuts, pistachios, almonds, in moderation, unroasted, unsalted, no glazes, no lies. They support your heart, your brain, your bones, and they don't wear a disguise. But there's still one nut left. One nut more dangerous than all the rest. It lives in nearly every home. It's beloved, it's affordable, and it's not even a real nut. In the next chapter, we uncover the final piece of the puzzle, the biggest betrayal hiding in your pantry. Part 6. Healing from the Inside Out. I was sitting in a clinic waiting room when I overheard an elderly man, maybe late 70s, telling his wife, "At least I still have my peanut butter." He smiled as if it were a small victory, like holding on to a favorite blanket from childhood. She smiled too, probably relieved he still had an appetite. They both meant well, but that simple comfort, it might have been hurting him more than he knew. Here's the thing. Peanuts aren't nuts. They're legumes. They grow underground, not in trees. And because of that, they're more vulnerable to mold, specifically a mold that produces aflatoxins. Aflatoxins are toxic compounds that build up in the liver over time. You can't taste them, can't smell them, but they accumulate. And if your liver is already slowing down with age or burdened by medications, it becomes harder and harder to detoxify. But that's not all. Peanuts are rich in omega-6 fatty acids. Sounds good, right? Not really. Omega-6s are inflammatory. And when they outweigh omega-3s in your body, which they often do, they ignite a low chronic fire inside you. Scientists have a term for it: inflammaging. It's the slow burn that erodes memory, stiffens, joints clouds thought, the aches you blamed on just getting older. Some of that might be dietary inflammation. Now imagine adding high blood pressure into the mix. Most peanut snacks are salted generously. For seniors with delicate cardiovascular systems, every extra milligram of sodium matters. Every bite edges them closer to risk. And there's something even more insidious. Peanuts are high in vitamin K. And while that sounds like a plus, it's a nightmare for anyone on blood thinners like warfarin. Vitamin K interferes with these medications silently, subtly. 1 week, your INR is stable, the next, it's wildly off. Your doctor tweaks your dose. You feel dizzy. You blame the pill. But it might have been your healthy snack all along. Then there's acrylamide, a compound formed during high-temperature roasting, linked to neural degeneration. That's right. Dry roasted peanuts might be nudging your memory into the fog without you even knowing. Still think that peanut butter sandwich is harmless. Even natural versions oxidize quickly, especially in warm climates or when stored too long. And those oxidized fats, they don't just taste stale. They trigger immune responses that wear down your system one bite at a time. And here's the cruel irony. Peanuts are everywhere. Cheap, familiar, a comfort food wrapped in nostalgia. And that's what makes them dangerous. Because you don't question comfort, you trust it. Until one day, your body doesn't. I've worked with families who didn't connect the dots until it was too late. The grandmother with sudden fatigue and puffy hands. The grandfather with erratic blood sugar and dark under eyes. They thought it was aging. Turned out it was snacks, tiny daily choices with big consequences. So what's the answer? It's not fear, it's awareness. If you love peanuts, limit them. Avoid dry roasted. Choose raw or boiled if you must. Store in the fridge. Never leave the jar on the counter in summer. And if you're on medication, ask your doctor about possible interactions. Most importantly, rotate. Don't let one nut dominate your diet, your palate, your routine. Because variety isn't just the spice of life, it's the shield. And one last thing, we're not done yet. There's still a final truth, a final nut that pretends to be the safest, a darling of natural snacks. Found in vegan recipes, clean eating blogs, and superfood lists. It's beautiful, beloved, and dangerously misunderstood. In the next and final chapter, we'll talk about the one nut that's not just overrated. It might be stealing your strength, one creamy bite at a time. Part 7. Daily habits that transform your skin. There's something seductive about simplicity. A creamy texture, a mild sweet flavor, a familiar name on the label that whispers you're doing the right thing. Cashews. They've become the golden child of healthy snacking. Show up in vegan cheese, plant-based sauces, clean energy bars. They're the default nut for people trying to eat well. But for aging bodies, cashews are a beautiful betrayal. Let me tell you about Mrs. Tanaka. She was 78, sharp-minded, lived alone in a quiet part of Osaka. Every Sunday, her granddaughter would bring her groceries, and always a small packet of cashews. For your heart, she'd say. And for a while it was lovely. Until Mrs. Tanaka began to feel tired. Her legs cramped at night. Her memory fogged. And one afternoon, she fell dizzy, disoriented, depleted. The doctors found nothing glaring. Blood pressure normal. No infection. But her blood sugar had quietly risen. Her calcium levels had dipped. Her kidney scan showed small deposits forming calcium oxalate crystals. Gravel in the shadows. All traceable back to the health food she loved most. Cashews carry a dual threat: high glycemic impact and high oxalate content. They spike your blood sugar like white bread, especially dangerous for seniors teetering on the edge of insulin resistance. And those oxalates, they bind to calcium, preventing absorption. And worse, they settle in your kidneys like silent saboteurs. But what shocks people most is what cashews go through just to be edible. They're toxic in their raw form, laced with urushiol, the same compound in poison ivy. That's why they must be roasted, steamed, boiled, essentially tortured before they're safe. But that process strips away nutrients. What's left is less superfood, more illusion. Even the texture works against you. Smooth, easy to chew, they bypass the brain's satiety signals. You don't feel full. You just keep going. Especially for older adults whose taste sensitivity has dulled cashews seem gentle. But inside, they're dense, calorie-rich, and lacking in the fiber and crunch that helps regulate appetite. Then there's the commercial twist. Most store-bought cashews are oil-roasted and salted. That means added sodium hard on the heart, hydrogenated oils inflaming joints and arteries, and sometimes sugar coatings too, disguised as honey roasted or lightly glazed. It's not the nut itself that's evil. It's the way it's used, the way it's marketed, the way it's trusted without question. Because that's how damage happens, not with alarms, but with whispers. I've watched too many seniors eat healthy snacks that made them feel worse. Not immediately, but gradually. A little more fatigue, a little less clarity, and they never blamed the food because cashews were clean. So, here's the truth. Cashews are not for everyone, especially not every day, especially not for those with fragile kidneys, weakened digestion, or blood sugar sensitivities. And yet, there's good news in all this. You have options. Walnuts rich in omega-3s support memory and mood. Almonds, high in fiber, promote satiety and stable energy. Pistachios, lower calorie per nut full of antioxidants. Even Brazil nuts, 1 or 2 a day, can support thyroid health with selenium. These alternatives don't carry the same hidden costs. They don't pretend to be perfect, but they don't need to. Because the goal isn't perfection. It's awareness. It's knowing that your pantry is as powerful as your prescription. That food, like medicine, must be chosen with care, especially now, especially as the margin for error narrows with age. So, let me leave you with this. Open your cabinet. Look at your snacks. Ask yourself, not just, is this tasty, but is this right for me? Because aging isn't about giving things up. It's about choosing better. And sometimes, better means stepping away from what's popular toward what truly nourishes you. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a wiser appetite, a gentler metabolism, and a future shaped not by fear, but by clarity. When we are young, food is just flavor, comfort, a way to fill time or silence or a plate. But as we age, food becomes something else entirely. Memory medicine, a mirror. Every choice we make now carries weight, not just on the scale, but in our bones, our blood, our brain. And yet how quietly those choices creep in. A handful here, a habit there, a label we trusted, a promise we believed. It's not our fault, but it is now our responsibility. Because aging doesn't have to be a slow drift into fragility. It can be a return back to awareness, back to agency, back to the wisdom that your body is still speaking, even if it now whispers. Think of your kitchen not as a battlefield, but a garden. Tend it with care. Pull out what no longer serves you. Nurture what gives you strength. And when in doubt, ask, is this fueling my future or feeding my fatigue? Resilience doesn't shout. It breathes quietly in every calm heartbeat, every clear morning, every choice not to numb, but to nourish. So, here's your moment. If this story made you pause, like it. If it reminded you of someone, share it with them. And if you felt seen, comment, I choose clarity. Let us know your age and where you're watching from. You're not alone. You're part of a movement growing slower, wiser, stronger. And before you go cashew or walnut 1 or 2, your health story doesn't start with a doctor. It starts right here at the pantry door with a hand on the handle, and a mind ready to choose better.